hostages held by Hamas who are believed to still be alive. There were no reports of any attacks by Hamas several hours after the bombardment, indicating it still hopes to restore the truce. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The White House says it has been consulted and voiced support for Israel's actions. In Tel Aviv, Roy Emick says the attacks are wrong.
Getting back to fighting is the death sentence for the hostages. That's about it. And I think the only reason that the coalition, that the government would like to go back to fighting is to stay in power. It's got nothing to do with what's best for Israel.
President Trump is scheduled to speak about the war in Ukraine with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard told an audience in India this is what the president had promised.
President Trump remains unwavering in his commitment to achieving peace through a strategy rooted in realism and pragmatism.
Homeland Security officials say a doctor from Lebanon who was deported over the weekend despite having a U.S. visa openly admitted to supporting a Hezbollah leader and attending his funeral. Dr. Rasha Alawi's colleague, Dr. Paul Morrissey in Rhode Island, says this is a surprise.
She's a very sweet person. She's a talented individual. She's very smart, bright. We have never had anything but the best of relationship from her, and care for her patients has been second to none.
This is AP News. A rock band is protesting the White House use of its biggest hit in a video showing a man being deported.
Semisonic's Closing Time hit it big in 1998, and singer Dan Wilson told the AP 3 years later he figured it was a gimme for bars to play at last call, but was stunned it was used at graduations, wakes, and elsewhere.
Just never knew that it would be so all-purpose.
But the band doesn't like this purpose. The White House used the song in a video showing a handcuffed and shackled man being patted down.
It sums up our immigration policy pretty well. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Semisonic says Caroline Levitt and the administration are missing the song's point entirely. It's about joy and possibilities and hope, and the band does not authorize the White House using the song in any way. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
I'm Ed Donahue, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see high in the low 70s. Winds out of the south at 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. Then for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 56. By Wednesday, a chance for some showers and thunderstorms. Partial sunshine develops, high of 66 degrees. Thursday, a chance for some snow here early on, cloudy, high around 44. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 48.
Hey Progressives, this is Richard Chu. WCPT is doing a live broadcast to celebrate our 20th anniversary, May 3rd at Max and Benny's Restaurant in Northbrook. I'll be there, co-hosting with Joan Esposito, Patty Vasquez, and Scott Duff, and hope to see you there. Get your tickets today by visiting heartlandsignal.com/anniversary. It's going to be a great time.
Progressive knows if you have to choose between everyday life and your RV, RV wins.
What, are you going to take the RV to the lake or clean out your closet? RV wins! Putting the dishes away or taking the RV camping? RV wins! Cleaning the fridge or taking a trip to the beach? RV wins!
You might want to clean the fridge real quick because, mold.
We clean out the fridge, then take the RV out.
With Progressive, you can bundle your RV with your home or auto and save with a discount and spend more time enjoying those savings in your RV. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers not available in all states and situations. WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chu. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chu.
Good Tuesday morning, progressives, and welcome to the March 18th, 2025 edition of Choose Views. 773-763-9278. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and iHeartRadio. And, of course, email me at richard@wcpt820.com. Catch me on Substack as well. Got to get some new stuff posted. Don't worry, it's coming. And also, you want to catch all of our shows where? WCPT Podcast on Apple Podcast and Spotify. You can get Choose Views, short version and long version. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez. And, of course, The Big Picture with Edwin Eisendrath. And our other shows as well. Check out our heartlandsignal.com digital platform. Today, live, local, and progressive. Joan will be talking with political analyst and author Jared Rates Sexton. And Heartland Signal's Rich Eberwine with 3 stories you may have missed from our digital newsroom. Live, local, and progressive, of course, weekdays 2 to 5 p.m. on WCPT. Progressive Talk for 20 years, and our anniversary is coming up in May, so you guys can still get tickets. Please do. We want to see you there. Come on out. Tonight from 5 to 7 p.m., Patty will be joined by Anita Pandur, Executive Director of Way Back In, and Dave Wall, Executive Director of the Illinois Council on Problem Gambling. They'll talk about Are You Really Winning? Illinois Gambling Helpline. Ben Kamenos, host of WHBY's Outside the Box, will have our weekly Wisconsin update, driving it home with none other than Patty Vasquez. Weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. here on WCPT, Heartland Signal website, TuneIn, YouTube, and Facebook. Tomorrow we'll be with our man Kurt Mullett, also known as Hoosier Blue 63. And Cheryl Johnson, Executive Director of People for Community Recovery. So check us out tomorrow. Check out Joan and Patty today. And also, you know, like I said, make sure when you're listening to the rest of the day, you're plugging into our sister on the West Coast, Stephanie Miller's show, and, of course, Tom Hartman, our professor of everything progressive. Got a busy show this morning. We're going to be joined by, Josh Haston, who will be talking about some things that are happening in the Middle East. And Elliot Richardson is going to talk with us a little bit about tariffs. Yes, tariffs. Lots to say this morning. I make a point of making my notes so I do the best that I can to stay on track because I know myself, and I'm thankful that I do. My man Devin and I always have some great conversations before we get started in the morning, and one of them this morning is, if you're headed out on the Kennedy, make absolutely certain you check your GPS or whatever you use before you leave the house because they are starting to close lanes. And, just to let you know, it took me 8 minutes longer to get here today. Fortunately, I check my GPS in the morning and right when I get in the car. So you guys make sure if you're headed out on the outbound Kennedy here in Chicago, you check and give yourself some extra time because they are closing lanes. It's not because of an accident that's closing things down or slowing things down if you're already in it and listening. It's because of construction. So as the phrase goes, what is it, Devin? We have 2 seasons in Chicago, winter and construction season. So y'all be prepared just to let you know in advance. And if you're taking public transportation, that may potentially affect your public transportation routes, just depending on how buses have to navigate. And if you're taking a taxi or an Uber or a Lyft or whatever, it's going to be a little bit longer if you're heading outbound on the Kennedy, just to let you know. And I don't have all the details on how far out it's going to go. It starts at approximately just after the Hubbard Tunnel. But it slows down already at basically at Roosevelt Road. If you're heading outbound, kind of right in that area. And then it continues past North Avenue. So just be mindful of that, guys. And prepare yourselves because I think that's going to be, according to what Devin and I are kind of trying to figure out, it's going to be moving itself out even further in terms of the left 2 lanes being closed. So there you go on Richard Chu's traffic report this morning. And let's make our way over to Choose Views News on March 18th, 2025. Consumers are reining in spending. We said it was coming. Retail sales rose less than expected in February as consumers reined in spending amid growing inflation concerns. The value of sales not adjusted for inflation advanced 0.2%, according to the Commerce Department's report yesterday, compared with forecasts of a 0.6% increase. January retail sales were revised to a decline of 1.2%. The figures add a picture in which U.S. tariffs, which could drive prices higher, are inhibiting American shoppers. Sales decreases in 7 out of 13 product categories have taken place, especially with vehicles. So, we said this was coming. Tariffs sap the U.S. growth. Proposed U.S. tariffs dampen the economic outlook both within the country and abroad. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said yesterday, alongside a modest reduction to its projections for global growth, the OECD cut its 2026 forecast for U.S. growth from 2.2% to 1.6% in response to Donald Trump's trade policies. Altogether, the Paris-based think tank projects the likely economic fallout will exceed the extra income the tariffs are supposed to generate. Y'all just don't know. Sometimes I want to cuss. Job hopping. Don't expect more pay. In the not too distant past, white-collar workers were expected a pay bump simply by landing a job at a different company. But as hiring budgets stall and fewer people are quitting their current jobs, those days are largely over, according to the Wall Street Journal. The salary difference between workers who stayed in a position and those who switched jobs has, quote, collapsed to a 10-year low per federal data. Meanwhile, job seekers, including those in tech, have seen salaries for their positions shrink or stall. And last but not least, the deadly storms have killed at least 40 people that have died in these severe storms and tornadoes that tore through the Midwest and the South over the weekend. And it's expected that there will be more past that number. The extreme weather system also triggered fatal wildfires in Oklahoma, and it placed tens of millions under tornado watches and wind advisories. This, of course, arrived on the East Coast on Sunday, bringing with it the threat of thunderstorms, strong winds, and the risk of brief tornadoes. About 173,000 people remained without power as late as yesterday, according to Power Outage US. One more quick story. This is I guess you could call it a bright spot, but just something that I found interesting at this time, given what's happening with some of our educational institutions. Harvard is looking to recruit more socioeconomically diverse students. And that will allow them to expand its financial aid program, according to what the college has announced. From this fall, students whose families make less than $200,000 will receive free tuition, which typically costs about $57,000 per year. Families under $100,000 will receive free tuition, housing, and food. The previous threshold for this group was $85,000. The expansion, which Harvard would say covers 86% of American families, mirrors other, quote, elite universities' attempt to avoid labels of elitism and offset the lack of federal funding from the Trump administration. So there you go, guys. A few traffic report items as well as what's happening over at Choose Views News. So I want to kind of dive in real quickly before we go to this first break. We've really, I don't know how to put this other than just to put it out there. You guys heard about these recent Donald Trump, putting his thumb on the scale when it comes to pardons, and this commentary around Joe Biden's pardons were because of the way in which the type of pen that was used and the mechanism of the pen itself, they were not valid pardons, and he wants to void them. I like what a judge said, Devin, which is, okay, fine, then I guess we have to look at some of the J6 ones as well. And it's a very simple statement from a judge that said, if you want to play it that way, then, that's going to potentially extend to you. And so, prepare yourself. I'm hearing the commentary from different folks and different sources that, we're winning in court. We're not winning in some of the other battles. And this is one of those where it's not a matter of it being won in court. It's a matter of people just standing up, in my opinion, just standing up and saying no. So I'm going to talk a little bit about fighting back today, and what I believe that Dems can do and how they can do it. So the other thing that I wanted just to speak to briefly, and we'll probably come back to this as part of the points today, is this whole thing around Donald Trump deciding to take away the Secret Service protection for President Biden's daughter, Ashley. All the folks that are, quote unquote MAGA supporters, and I posted this last night, if you are those who say you're of the Christian faith and all the other things that you present yourself as being, part of what I was raised and part of what I've learned over my lifetime is pettiness doesn't really align itself with Christianity and faith-based thinking and, spirituality and whatever your faith happens to be. So I'm just going to say this right out of the gate today, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. This is why you can take the gloves off Democrats. This is why you can take the gloves off progressive liberal Democrats, particularly, and those who are following the cause that we say we believe in. The pettiness is a sign of an immature person. It's a sign of, clearly, as I've said and others have said, that Donald Trump is on a retribution tour. If you voted for him, or you've convinced yourself, or you're around people who convince themselves that they voted because of the economy and because of, immigration, the southern border, yet you voted for a guy that you knew all these things about. We haven't talked about him as a 34-time convicted felon in a long time. But if you voted for a person that's now going to do something that could cause people's lives, that is a safety issue, and you still justify it based on he's going to fix the economy and he's going to fix the border, but you let him get away with petty things like this and you don't call him out, you are truly the problem, because you're a hypocrite. Taking away someone's Secret Service detail could be a safety issue that could cost them their lives. And let's measure the two people. Let's have a moment to measure the two. In a public space, I don't remember Ashley Biden saying anything about about Donald Trump in a negative way that would have said, okay, I'm gonna, I don't remember her doing that. So by comparison, the Trump kids, particularly the boys, the oldest two, trash talked President Biden all during his term. But President Biden, not at one point did he ever, won't say he didn't consider it, but he certainly didn't act on taking away their social security, their Secret Service detail. I mean, Devin, did you ever hear that he was threatening to do that? Didn't do it. Because he understood and understands that there are crazy folks out there that could have brought harm to the Trump boys. And neither did he do it to the daughters or the youngest son. Not even considered it. Because he understands the nature of why that's there in the first place. And so for every one of you who voted for Donald Trump anywhere in this country, this is petty, and because you're standing behind it, so are you. Because you're standing behind it. Your actions dictate pettiness. Let me put it that way. I try not to call people names, but call their actions. Your actions for standing behind something like this, your actions are petty. To stand behind someone that would do something that's so meaningful but meaningless at the same time. And I hope that you understand that the price of anything isn't going to go down when you elect someone that their nature, based on their actions, are petty. And you're allowing him to get away with that because you won't stand up and speak to and say that that's a petty thing to do. It's not necessary. Prove me wrong, America. Prove me wrong. Tell me it's not petty. But I want to hear from you guys who think that it is, and let's talk about it. But for right now, we have to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. In the midst of World War II, the 200 and 515th Coast Artillery Companies from New Mexico stood resolute against overwhelming odds. Composed largely of Hispanic soldiers, these brave men were stationed in the Philippines, where they faced the brutal onslaught of Japanese forces. Despite their lack of supplies, American and Filipino forces managed to fight the Japanese for 3 months. However, this was not a victory for the American and Filipino forces. As the American Army surrendered in Bataan, the U.S. and Filipino prisoners of war were forced into the infamous Bataan Death March. A grueling 65-mile forced trek under the scorching sun, marked by extreme deprivation and harsh treatment. Sadly, 829 men were never able to return home. New Mexico's veterans of the Bataan Death March are honored each spring with the annual White Sands Bataan Death March Marathon. People from all around the world join together in the desert at the White Sands to participate in the anniversary of one of the most tragic casualties of World War II. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Good morning. You're waking up with Richard Chew.
Good morning. Good morning. Good morning.
We're live and ready to hear from you. Text or call us now at 773-763-9278. Same number. Simple as that.
Let's get the conversation going
on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Welcome back, progressives, to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Send us a text or give us a call. So that's my observation. Before we went to break, I was talking about this pettiness of taking away Secret Service detail. Now, I know that there's all kinds of protocol is not the customary is the word that I wanted to use. There's certainly a conversation to be had about at a certain point, is Secret Service detail necessary? It's not a law. That to my knowledge, anything that I read about that, but it just, I'll put the brakes on this. It's just a petty thing to do, and the Trump people know that. The people around him know that, and y'all elected that person. So those who voted for him, the MAGA crowd, elected someone that's petty, and if you stand behind it, your actions dictate that you believe in that too. So there, I'll try to leave that alone for now. Devin, I heard that Bernie Sanders and AOC were out there fighting the oligarchy. I heard that they were out there, holding different events. And I also heard that that they're having to move to bigger venues because the demand has gotten quite high. That's how you fight. So when I said earlier, I had a little thought for Democrats about fighting. You can do both. What I mean by that is you can fight, and I heard this commentary that let Donald Trump, and Elon Musk crash and burn. Okay, there's a certain conversation I can have around that. Let them crash and burn, and fight at the same time. And what happened over the weekend, which we see this baking out more and more, wasn't an example of that. And you're seeing now. I mean, everybody from Pelosi, obviously Hakeem Jeffries had something to say. Pelosi definitely wasn't happy, and others were not happy with, what Schumer did or did not do, depending on how you frame that. But fighting is a constant right now. It's unfortunate that we have to be in this mode. However, it is. So, Democratic elected officials, we can walk and chew gum, meaning that when Donald Trump is about to step into it, let him step into it. When Elon Musk and his crowd of little young boys are trying to do things that they get caught doing that's illegal, which eventually the stuff that's illegal that they're doing is going to come to light. There's going to be light brought to it. I'm not being optimistic. I just know that the bridge too far eventually cracks, as the phrase goes. But in this case, Dems, the fight is. And I'm speaking to both the elected officials that know this, and I'm speaking to us as regular voting folks. We have to fight as much as it takes out of us every day. We fight, inch by inch. And some of the commentary that I hear, which I understand, is, Richard, we're fighting right now. We're pushing back. And I get that. And I'm not saying that people are not fighting. I'm just saying that because of where we are, and this is why I talk about things in terms of the local impact. When we talk to a local official, one of the reasons that I always ask them a question about how are federal guidelines and or the current administration impacting what your local group is doing, because I know that a lot of we can see it. The goal for the Trump administration is to grind down and slow down the impact of what the states can do on their own. And that is the reason when I talk about fighting or when I speak to that point, it's about making sure that we know that this is something that we have to stand up to. Now, let me bring this back to a point I was going to make earlier when I said we can do both. The Democrats have historically been caught on their heels and then had to fight themselves out of something. What I applaud about Bernie and AOC is that they're taking the fight out to the general public. And that's where and what these protests and rallies are all about. They're taking the fight to the public. And I know there's a lot of people that are saying, Richard, I'm not doing it this time. And I get that. And I also respect it. But at the same time, you know, we have to take note of the fact that fighting is part of what we have to do right now. And when I talk about this in the space of local groups and local or state representatives and state politicians and what bills are getting passed, it's all about making sure that we know that there's connective tissues between the federal and the state and certainly the local. And you can be involved in that by making a decision to find an organization, find a representative that's getting things done, that you can say, you know what, I want to be one of their allies, and I don't want to be the person that's just screaming at the screen or at the radio, as it were, throwing something at the screen or at the radio. This is where getting involved is part of. You know, I won't say it's an obligation. I'll say it's an opportunity. It's part of what I'm. You know, part of my being right now is to be in fight mode, because otherwise they are going to try to run the bus over us, and I'm not going to let that happen. Thank you for posting, or thank you for the email from Al, and let's see who else. And look at one from Rich, I think down in Florida. So thanks, guys, for your early morning text that you sent to us. Do we have quick time to try to squeeze in a quick call? Is it Naomi? Naomi? Do I have?
Hi.
Hey, good morning. Are you calling from California? Oh, my goodness.
Yes, we spoke before. Remember, I'm near this totem pole.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you this morning?
Good, thanks. I'm enjoying your talk. I have a question and a quick statement.
Okay.
Is that all right?
Yes.
I'll be fast.
Go for it.
You know, it's concerning the criminality in the administration. I think we have to look at it more broadly, I think. White-collar crime has almost never been prosecuted, and now it's built up to what it is now. White men weren't prosecuted for the genocide they committed toward the natives and enslaved people and poverty. People who are poor were always penalized more than people with money. So because of that, we have arrived where we are now. Okay? So I think when we look at it historically, we can see that we've done it to ourselves, so to speak. You know, that's what I think.
Well, historically, this is just, you know, a fact. Maybe fact's not the word I want to use, but certainly a part of our reality. It's always been an interesting thing to watch the prosecution of certain people versus the prosecution of others, and how the court systems have bent themselves into pretzels to not put certain people in jail. Meanwhile, other people get, you know, they get prosecuted and it's so much easier and sentenced so much easier for a hell of a lot longer period of time. That's a fact. There's no, you know, need to dance around that. I hear what you're saying, Naomi. What was your other point you were going to make?
Oh, just one thing, and then I'll get to the question for you, which I think you're going to enjoy, I hope.
Okay.
As far as I'm concerned, justice has never been dispensed. correctly. But anyway, because you're into finances, are you able to explain Bitcoin? I just don't get it. I think I've got some kind of, and I'm not really stupid, honestly. It's such a difficult concept for me to understand. I know they're scamming us. I know they're trying to scam us. I know they will scam us as much as they can, and I know they are scamming us. But I don't understand how they're doing it.
Well, I'm going to take a pause on this for two reasons. One, we're going to get to a break, but the other reason is I really am not going to. I won't answer the question because I don't know. I won't answer the question because I choose not to. Bitcoin is something that, from a financial standpoint, I really don't take a lot of time to try to break down. It's not that it's complicated, Naomi. It's that there's a certain amount of uncertainty with it. And I think that that's where and why so many people are hesitant to be a participant in Bitcoin. And I'm being very judicious in the words that I'm using because I have to be careful to talk about and give financial advice over the air. So just know that. It's not that I'm avoiding your question. It's just that I have to be prudent in that space. I would say that you're better off, talking with a local financial advisor that's there in the state of California that can talk to you about it at greater depth than I can or will. But I will say, now I'll say this broadly, and then we have to go to a break. Broadly speaking, there are a lot of people that have some suspicious thoughts about what the administration is trying to do, because Peter Thiel and Elon Musk definitely have stated that they want to see alternative economies in the United States of America. That might be code word for trying to crash the U.S. economy. There is more than speculation from a lot of people that are a hell of a lot smarter than me in this space. But I would suggest, Naomi, to get more information, I would reach out to a local financial advisor that can answer some of those questions for you. That's just a more prudent way for me to handle that. Is that fair?
People who are thinking about participating with the Bitcoin really understand what it's doing?
Say that again.
Do you think that people who are considering getting into the Bitcoin adventure understand what they're doing, actually?
Yeah, again, that's another one where I would be making a little bit of an assumption, which I don't want to do. I think that there's a lot of people that are excited by it, and cryptocurrency in general are excited by it because they see the stories and they hear all the it's doing great. So they want to grab, as I like to say, the speeding train. And I'm one to be very cautious in that space. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what people know, and I don't want to make an assumption. But for you in your space, I would highly recommend that you speak to a local advisor and have that person, him or her, give you a little bit more detail about its operation. But I do think that there are people that are drawn to it because right now, no pun intended, it's a shiny coin. It's a shiny object. So thanks.
So it reminds me of the fever. It's like gambling, kind of the gambling fever. It reminds me of a little bit.
Yeah, I can hear what you're saying. Listen, Amy, we got to take a quick break. I appreciate your early morning call, and stay safe out on the West Coast, okay?
Have a nice day. Thank you, Richard.
You're welcome. Bye now. All right, guys, 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
You're the only voice of reason on the radio.
You give me hope.
Having listened to you every day.
Thank you for your clear insight.
Always felt a little bit smarter.
I listen to you every single day.
I keep coming back to this station, and thank you for what you do.
On WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
I juggle a lot. And managing constipation with belly pain from my irritable bowel syndrome with constipation, or IBS-C, with laxatives and fiber isn't enough. My doctor recommended a way to get ahead of it. Then I said yes to Linzess.
Linzess linaclotide is a prescription medicine that treats IBS-C in adults. It's not a laxative. It's a once-daily pill that helps you get ahead of your symptoms. It's proven to help you have more frequent and complete bowel movements and helps relieve overall abdominal symptoms, belly pain, discomfort, and bloating. These symptoms were studied in combination, not individually. Do not give Linzess to children less than 2. It may harm them. Do not take Linzess if you have a bowel blockage. Get immediate help if you develop unusual or severe stomach pain, especially with bloody or black stools. The most common side effect is diarrhea, sometimes severe. If it's severe, stop taking Linzess and call your doctor right away. Other side effects include gas, stomach area pain, and swelling. Talk to your doctor and learn more at linzess.com or call 1-800-LINZESS.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see high in the low 70s. Winds out of the south at 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. Then for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 56. By Wednesday, a chance for some showers and thunderstorms. Partial sunshine develops, high of 66 degrees. Thursday, a chance for some snow here early on, cloudy, high around 44. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 46.
In Illinois, animals are being tortured illegally for fun. Horses are whipped and punched in the face. Terrified steers are beaten and shocked with electricity. Animals with broken legs and backs receive no medical care. Why won't political leaders stop this criminal abuse? Please visit www.steertailing.com to help Showing Animals Respect and Kindness abolish these criminal acts. And please tune in on Saturdays at 5 p.m. for Chicago Alliance for Animals If Cage Walls Could Talk.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
It's Chew's View with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Hey guys, welcome back to Chew's View, 773-763-9278. Went over a little bit there, but sometimes that happens. Wanted to get that call in from Naomi on the West Coast. Make your way over to heartlandsignal.com. We've got a couple of clips that we might get to on the back end of this segment, but I want to make sure that I let you guys know to make your way over to Heartland Signal. One of the clips, one of the things that we played yesterday of Tom Emmer talking about tariffs was really interesting. A lot of people reached out to me. It's like, wow, that guy doesn't really get it, but there you go. Part of our ongoing conversations are going to certainly cover topics that are national issues, international issues. And one of them this morning is talking with Middle East correspondent for JNS and co-host of JNS podcast. And that would be none other than Josh Hasten. Good morning, Josh. We got you on Clean Feed. So I believe we finally got connected to you. Are you there this morning?
I'm here. Thanks so much for having me.
Good. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. I want to turn up my mic a little bit so I can hear you well. Well, welcome to Chew's Views. I'm glad you could be with us this morning. Glad you got some time carved out where we can talk a little bit about what's happening with, obviously, one of the bigger international conversations right now, and that is what's happening in the Middle East, particularly in Gaza, and what's going on in our conversation between Israel and Palestine. You've been one of the, what I would say is one of the big voices, many voices in this conversation, and with your work with the Jewish News Syndicate and your correspondent work there, you've definitely had what I'll call bird's eye view of what's happening in the Middle East. Let's talk a little bit about that. But take a moment and just introduce yourself to our audience and give them a little bit of a rundown on you and some of the work that you're doing currently.
Sure. So my name is Josh Hasten, originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. I've been in Israel for the last 23 years in various capacities in the fields of public relations and journalism. I also host several podcasts, including the Jerusalem Minute podcast. We had a new episode which just came out last night, tackling all the issues, the top stories, if you will, in Israel and the Middle East. So that's where we are now. And we had some breaking news overnight with the situation in Gaza.
Yeah, without a doubt. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the Israeli military carried out extensive airstrikes targeting Hamas in Gaza overnight between Monday and Tuesday. It's now afternoon in Israel. And from what I understand now, at least 4, perhaps up to 10 senior Hamas members were killed in those strikes. And how did we get to this point? I mean, Israel was in the midst of negotiating alongside the United States, potentially brokering an extension to the current ceasefire that Israel has with Hamas. But based on the reports, including out of the United States, and the administration, Hamas, their position was just unacceptable. They repeatedly refused to release the hostages, refused to negotiate in goodwill. So over the weekend, the talks hit that kink, and Hamas basically, at the end of the day, is refusing to release the remaining Israeli hostages, both the living and the dead. It is believed that there are about 24, 25 living hostages, and the rest are, in fact, were murdered by Hamas. Hamas will not release them. They've been playing games. It's psychological warfare, psychological terrorism against Israel. And finally, Israel said enough. We are not able to get our hostages back through these negotiations. They're going nowhere. So instead, we are going to use force, and we're going to show Hamas we mean business. And that is why I'm literally right now getting reports that it's up to 10 of the top remaining members of Hamas have been taken out in the latest airstrikes overnight. So that's where we are right now.
So is the suspension of funding to the Palestinian Authority, do you think that had any impact, or maybe the better question is, will that actually have permanent impact, or will that funding be or a suspension of funding be a permanent effort?
Well, right now, just to be clear, the Trump administration has stopped funding for training of the PA security forces, not in Gaza, but in Judea and Samaria, in those areas. And the reason is, for many, many years, the PA's responsibility, and especially their security forces, included dismantling the terrorist infrastructure of Hamas in areas they control. I'm talking about big cities like Bethlehem and Hebron, Tulkarm and Jenin. These places are now run by the Palestinian Authority. They were supposed to use the funding for many, many years and the training they received from the U.S. actually in order to crack down on Hamas. And that is not what they've been doing. What they have been doing is they've been using funding from abroad, from international donors, and diverting that money in order to pay terrorists and their families. It is known as the Pay for Slay program. And it still exists today as official Palestinian Authority policy. If you murder an Israeli, you get X amount of dollars. If you are killed in the midst of the terror attack, your family gets that money. And it's a sliding scale. These terrorists are rewarded. If you murder 5 Israelis, you get X amount of money. But if you murder 10, you get even more so. So the Palestinian Authority, we're talking about way back since the 90s, they're supposed to crack down on terrorism. Instead, they're actually paying terrorists, rewarding them.
So do you support
program?
So do you support then that
carry out these attacks? Do
you support the Trump administration's suspension of that, or where do you stand in that space?
No, 100%, absolutely. Again, it's not to answer your original question. There is, in my opinion, there's no connection between the PA and Hamas. They're two separate branches, and those two branches don't necessarily get along. But one thing they do, or one topic they do get along on, is both Hamas and the PA want to see the destruction of the state of Israel. They have a different view on how it should be done. We saw on October 7th the brutal massacre Hamas carried out, murdering 1,200 Jews, Israelis, here in Israel. The Palestinian Authority, while they're also complicit in terrorism, have taken a different approach. They've taken a staged approach. They're trying to get more and more land from Israel, and unfortunately over the years Israel has turned over a lot of land in Judea and Samaria to the PA, and every time Israel turns over land, those areas become a hotbed for terror.
Why is it then that? But I'm curious. Why is it that Israel has turned over that land?
Good question. That's a great question. Israel turned it over back in the 1990s for promises and hopes of peace. Israel was willing to do so. Again, you're talking about way back when Yasser Arafat was heading the P. At that time, it was the PLO. Now it's the PA. Israel wants peace, and Israel was willing to go to the extremes to get it, and that backfired. And the perfect example, unfortunately, is Gaza. Israel pulled out of Gaza, pulled all its citizens out of Gaza in 2005. We're talking about 8,000 to 10,000 people. Within 2 years, Hamas took over, and they've been firing rockets for over 20 years. And now you have the October 7th massacre. So anytime Israel gives in to terror, turns over land, falls for this ruse of peace, this is what happens, unfortunately.
So this is a broad question, and it's a question that I don't think I know for a fact. This is a question that comes across, my eyes all the time. And that is, you said Israel wants peace. I think that Palestine wants peace. I'm going to say I think both of the communities of people want peace. The Palestinians want peace. The Israelis want peace. The community of people. What is clear is that the military powers from both sides, Hamas and the Israeli government and the Israeli military leadership, I don't always see that they're aligned with what the people of each of those communities want. You're very pro a particular side. I'm very pro both sides. And I think many people across the world would say we need to have a permanent ceasefire, and we need to have both sides to be honest brokers in that space. But it's the people that I'm most concerned about. I really don't care. It's not that I don't care, but I don't believe either of the military efforts are operating in good faith based on things that have actually happened. But this is where I have to ask you this question, and as middle of the road as we both can be, what do the people want? What do the citizens want?
It's a very good question, and it's a fair question. And here's my problem. Unfortunately, the polls show, the statistics show that 80% of those living under the Palestinian Authority control, 80% said that they supported what happened on October the 7th. That's number one. Number two.
Who took the poll?
I don't have the poll in front of me, but I do know that 80%. I can get that to you. But here's my.
Do you understand why I asked though? Who took the poll?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
Because a lot of times polling, I've always said this: polling is polling is polling. But who did the poll? What was inside the poll, and then who delivered it to which group of people? So I'm more of a okay. We asked the question, what do the people think? At the same time, it's like if it's a poll that's giving the answer, and then who took the poll, and what's the credibility of the poll?
I hear what you're saying. I can look that up, but in the meantime, I'll share something with you. Where I live in Judea, I live south of Jerusalem, and on a day-to-day basis, there is relative coexistence between Jews and Arabs who live in this area. The problem, though, is that the Palestinian Authority, they are brainwashing the next generation, not towards peace, but to hate. Okay, if you look at the official Palestinian Authority textbooks, some of those are actually UNRWA or United Nations textbooks. They are teaching the next generation to grow up in a society of hate. They're brainwashing, they're inciting towards terrorism. And even if on a day-to-day basis, the Arabs who I come into contact to on a day-to-day basis are in favor of peace, as you just said, it's very, very difficult. You can ignore, as you said, the politicians, and I tell people this all the time, you can ignore what's being said in the Knesset, you can ignore what the leadership is saying, let's say within the Muqata and Ramallah, the Palestinian Authority. But when these kids are growing up being fed a steady diet of hate on a daily basis, it's no wonder that we have to encounter attempted terrorist attacks on a daily basis here in Israel. So that's the reality that we live with here. By the way, I'm looking here at that question you asked me before. No, this one's actually about Lebanon. 80% of people in Lebanon support Hamas's October 7th onslaught in southern Israel. So this one's about Lebanon. I'll have to keep looking for the
yeah, because one of the things that I'm
Authority.
One of the things that I'm always cautious and careful of is when polls are conducted, how they're conducted, and who they're conducted by. As an African American man in America, when I see there's a poll that says X, Y, and Z, I'm like, okay, who conducted it and what's their objective? And that's on any side of an issue, because I want to know a little bit deeper piece to that. So kind of moving to another.
I have your answer, by the way.
Go ahead.
I found your answer, though. The 80% supported the October 7th attack. This is actually a poll taken by the Palestinians themselves at Birzeit University, which is under the Palestinian Authority control. Birzeit University's Arab World for Research and Development revealed. So this is a poll not taken by Israel, not taken by the United States, not taken by any other outside or external body. This is an actual poll taken by Palestinians about Palestinians.
But led by but actually led by the Palestinian Authority, which in many ways has that, to your point, the suspicious piece inside of that is what you were just talking about. So, there's a big drop, huge drop in Palestinians that supported the attack on October 7th. I mean, that's why, I always say, Josh, we have to be mindful of a poll when it was taken and then what's changed since that poll was taken and put out. Because if not, those who are, for lack of better words, reporting on it or talking about it, are then doing what we shouldn't do, which is to further what some people say is either old news or something that might be tipping toward propaganda. And that comes from either side. And so that's why I was asking about, where the poll came from and now, what's changed from that poll. I want to ask a question about something else that you had spoken well on, and that's recently with the launches, the U.S. launches and strikes targeting the Houthis in Yemen. And
Sure.
It was a big conversation over the weekend. So I want to kind of get your opinion on this, or your observation on this in terms of Trump's tweet about and I'm paraphrasing here, there's more coming. Do you think that that's a threat with no teeth in it, or more bullying from the U.S. president? And do you think it's necessary at this point? How much more military force is going to be required in that area, based on what you know?
Again, it's hard to tell exactly what's going to happen in the future in terms of, what the president's intentions are down the road. But what we did see is that the president took meaningful steps in order to target the Houthis, who are an Iranian-backed terrorist organization in Yemen, who have fired countless times their ballistic missiles at the state of Israel. And at the same time, in terms of your audience in the United States, the Houthis have caused billions of dollars in damage by blocking the Red Sea, so that these vessels, whether it's commercial vessels or whatnot, can't get through that area without coming under attack. They've carried out international piracy. They've taken over vessels. They've been holding people hostage. This is a Iranian-backed terrorist organization who decided after the October 7th attacks, that for years they've been firing against Saudi Arabia, which is in theory an enemy of Iran. But they decided to then direct their war tools towards those vessels, international vessels and American vessels. So they're directly targeting the United States of America, directing their missiles at American vessels in the Red Sea, in that area. And I think the president and others, have made it clear that it's cost billions and billions of dollars. Vessels now have to go all the way around the Horn of Africa to get to where they're going. So the president decided that he was going to back his words, his previous threats to the Houthis, and take up military action. How far he's going to go, I don't know. Is it possible to completely get rid of the Houthi threat? I don't know. But the president has also made it clear that Iran is responsible, and he's not only going after Houthi targets in Yemen, but he's also going to, or has already, it's hard to say exactly what's been hit, planning on targeting Iranian targets in Yemen and perhaps against Iran itself. The president has said he's wanted to negotiate with Iran. They dismissed his letter, which he sent, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, saying they want to have nothing to do with the United States, nothing to do with the administration. So the president now is saying he holds Iran responsible for the actions of the Houthis, and he may eventually take it out directly on the country of Iran. So that remains to be seen.
Yeah, and then the problem that so many Americans have with that, and I think that the world should have with that, is that takes us, in terms of the conversation about, nuclear warfare or third world war confrontation, it takes us closer to that, which nobody wants to see. And I think that whether you're in the Middle East, or if you're in Canada, or if you're in the UK, or here in the United States, no one wants to see that. So this is where my statement, and I stand behind this, is more diplomacy from our allies, our collective allies that are Israeli, that are in support of Israel, supportive of free Palestine, and most importantly for the U.S., support of us not going to war, would say that more allies involved and more diplomacy has to be on the table. I know that the attacks have been without necessarily without provocation, But this is where diplomacy has to happen, and more people need to be willing, more of the leaders, whether it be Trump, whether it be Netanyahu, or whether it be the Iranian leaders, have to be, and the other countries in the region, Arab region, and Egyptian support has to be on the table. Nobody wants that to escalate to this point, and it can't be just because the Iranians, more specifically the Houthis, aren't cooperating. It has to be, we've got to stay at the table. We've got to find ways to further diplomacy. That's my observation. And I think that more and more people are understanding that we have to defend ourselves and Israel has to defend itself. But at the same time, without diplomacy being always on the table, then we put ourselves closer and closer to these type of, larger conflicts. So, Josh, it's been good having you with us. I know this is extraordinarily tough time, and you're in an extraordinarily hot spot, to not to undermine the importance of it or the danger that's there. And we wish you all the safety that anybody would deserve to have in that space. And to have you keep us informed as to what's happening. But we appreciate you being with us this morning, and all we can say to you from afar is to stay as safe as you possibly can in bringing out what's happening and the work that you're doing with JNS and, of course, the Jerusalem Minute podcast. So thank you so much for being with us this morning.
I appreciate your kind words, and thank you so much for having me.
All right, Josh, stay safe, and we will talk soon. Be well now.
Thanks so much.
All right, bye now. From across the globe, you guys, every now and again we have the opportunity to talk to someone that's literally in the heat of battle. Not that he is, on the front lines, but he's in a region that has definitely been truly under fire. And I know that a lot of people are saying or thinking, I've got to believe that that these attacks that have taken place that are ongoing are still doing the one thing that I have sternly stood in the void against, and that's with the senseless killing of so many people, whether they be on the Israeli side or on the Palestinian side. And time again, what we find is that this is the part that I think a lot of people have a difficult time talking about or acknowledging, maybe is a better word, is that our bias will send us in a direction. It's so easy for our bias to go in a certain direction. My bias is toward peace. My bias is toward diplomacy and finding ways to dial the temperature down. And Josh is Israeli, and he's going to be defensive of what the Israeli government is doing, which is why I tried to isolate with the question about what do the people want versus what the government and the leaders, whether it be the Palestinian Authority or it be the Israeli military and government, Netanyahu included, or it be Trump and the administration. We want to see a dialing down of the temperature. Diplomacy is what it takes first and ongoing. And that's what we have to push our leaders for, that, because we know the administration is, they've got a serious temperament toward giving Netanyahu what he wants. And that, in this case, is as he said it himself, to finish the job. And I can't get behind that. So wanted to have Josh on this morning, a touching and dicey area, but I wanted to at least give him an opportunity to talk about what he's seeing and what he's reporting, and, my take on that as well. So we're going to take a quick break, guys. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we'll be right back.
The family meeting.
Hi, Cindy.
I'm just a nobody with no circle of influence.
That's never true.
I'm trying to spread this idea that I came up with, so here it is. We still have DEI. It just has a new meaning. Demagogues empowering idiots.
You better trademark that, because I will if you don't.
I'm writing it down.
Sundays, 4 to 6 p.m., The Family Meeting.
Amazon Business offers smart business buying solutions, so you can spend more time growing your business and less time doing the admin. Learn more at AmazonBusiness.com.
Question: where were you on May 3rd, 2005? If you were listening to the radio, you may have heard the first day on the air for WCPT. On Saturday, May 3rd, WCPT is celebrating 20 years on the air with a big live broadcast from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We'll be at Max and Benny's restaurant in Northbrook, and WCPT listeners can attend this special 4-hour broadcast. Al Sparks will kick off the celebration with the WCPT broadcast team. Richard Chu, Joan Esposito, Patty Vasquez, and Scott Duff, as well as surprise guests from our 20-year history. It's the WCPT 20th anniversary, and you're invited to come and celebrate with us. To register for this special event, go to WCPT.com and click on the WCPT anniversary banner. Seating is limited and will sell out quickly. Go to WCPT.com today to register. See you on Saturday, May 3rd from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Max and Benny's in Northbrook.
So spread the word that WCPT is just great.
AP News. Good morning, I'm Ed Donahue. Israeli strikes across Gaza have killed more than 400 people.
I could not sit in the office today after the night we've been through, after the vicious step that Netanyahu and his government took.
There are protests in Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ordered the strikes after Hamas refused Israeli demands to change the ceasefire agreement. The White House says it had been consulted and voiced support for Israel's actions. Dr. James Jennings is with the American group NGO Conscious International.
I ask Hamas, release the hostages. And secondly, I say to Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu, you cannot achieve peace by this method of killing more babies.
Hamas says the return to war amounted to a death sentence for around 24 living hostages held in Gaza. Prime Minister Netanyahu has fired or forced out a string of top officials since the deadly Hamas attack in 2023 that triggered the war. The country's domestic security chief is the latest target. The party of Israel's far-right lawmaker says it is returning to Netanyahu's government. Russian President Vladimir Putin's spokesman says Putin and President Trump will discuss the war in Ukraine when they talk later today. Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams were on the International Space Station since June. They are now headed home.
Many people who love you and whom you love are waiting for you, so safe travel. Godspeed.
Their journey began with a bungled Boeing test flight more than 9 months ago. Residents and work crews in the South and the Midwest are beginning to clean up and survey the destruction from a 3-day outbreak of severe weather. The storm started Friday and kicked up wildfires, tornadoes, and dust storms. At least 42 people have died. This is AP News. The Department of Homeland Security says a doctor from Lebanon who was deported despite having a U.S. visa openly admitted to supporting a Hezbollah leader. Dr. Rasha Alawi has already been sent back to Lebanon. Her case is still being heard. In court documents, Alawi said she follows Hassan Nasrallah for his religious and spiritual teachings, not his politics. Alawi is a kidney transplant specialist. Colleague Dr. Paul Morrissey at Brown University in Rhode Island says this came as a surprise.
She's a very sweet person. She's a talented individual. She's very smart, bright.
Morrissey says without Alawi, care for transplant patients will be delayed.
The work that she would have done was very specialized, very complex. She was really good at it, and it's going to be a challenge for us to make up for her loss.
A Brown student called the deportation part of a broader pattern of political repression. I'm Ed Donahue, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see high in the low 70s. Winds out of the south at 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. And for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 56. By Wednesday, a chance for some showers and thunderstorms. Partial sunshine develops, high of 66 degrees. Thursday, a chance for some snow here early on, cloudy, high around 44. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 46.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pegol is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Paid for by Estella's Pharma.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that will focus on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Welcome back to Choose Views Progressives. Thanks for being with us this morning, 773-763-9278. Love to hear your thoughts about everything we're covering, and most definitely my previous interview with Josh Haston, who's in the Middle East. Obviously, right now, that's a not right now, since the attack in 2023, it's been an extraordinarily delicate situation. And, you know, we have to face it head on as a country, because it's definitely one that's going to continue to pull resources. The thing, as I said, that I don't want to see, no one wants to see this, is an escalation in Iran that could lead us toward conflict where we got boots on the ground and tipping toward, you know, some sort of increased action, military action particularly. So that's the point I wanted to try to make to him, irrespective of where one sit with Israel and Palestine. In support. I'm in support of ceasefire, peace talks, diplomacy, and making sure that we continuing to have death is stopped. And Joe Biden was given the label of Genocide Joe, and many American voters may not have shown up at the polls for Kamala Harris, or may have voted for Trump, or not. You know, they didn't vote at all. But ultimately, this is where we end up being when we are not advocating for peace for all of those involved. And here's how I'll say this. There's folks in Russia who are suffering, citizens in Russia that are suffering because of Putin's decision and his military. There are people in Ukraine who are suffering because of that as well. So people dying is people dying no matter where it is. If it's on the continent of Africa, anywhere in the world, because of decisions of leaders and military forces, and people die, that's a problem. And I'll state this today, and I'll stand this ground. I've got a problem with that. Diplomacy, it starts with diplomacy, and it ends with diplomacy. So we have to make sure that the right people are at the table. We made a mistake in electing Donald Trump because he's an advocate for pettiness, and he's an advocate for violence. It's shown itself. And that's the mistake that the United States made in the voting population. It's going to have impact throughout the world. It is now in the Middle East, and it's going to continue to be that way until and it's going to continue to be that way in the Middle East. And unfortunately, what we're seeing with the war in Ukraine, it's continuing to happen there. I'm not a war expert. I'm not trying to be, and I'm not a foreign policy expert. Don't try to be. But what I am is realistic about what we cannot do when it comes to conflict, and that's further them by furthering the aggression. There has to be diplomacy. Our greatest strides as a nation have been when we found the way toward diplomacy. And when all else has failed, we've then gone to raising the temperature, and we've gone to conflict. So don't get me wrong. I hate war. I'm a fighter, but I hate war. To take from Jane Fonda. I don't want to steal her words. So, all right, guys, a little bit of a pivot, but not too much. There's another war we could say that's going on, and that's with our collective economy and how we're handling a particular part of it. I shouldn't say how we are, but how the administration is handling it in an extraordinarily poor way. With us this morning is the president and co-founder of the Small Business Advocacy Council, who's been with us before, and that would be none other than Elliot Richardson. Good morning, Elliot, and welcome to Choose Views.
Hey, Richard, thank you so much for having me back on the show.
Absolutely. Glad to have you with us, and I know that this morning we have so much to talk about, but particularly this morning I want to talk about what you guys and your organization are doing and your observations about what's happening with tariffs, but kind of reintroduce yourself to our listeners so that they have a better take or a current take on Elliot Richardson and the SBAC.
Sure. Well, so the SBAC is a nonpartisan organization, Small Business Advocacy Council, and we are laser focused on supporting small businesses across the board and fostering economic development. So we try to move legislation on a state level. We do work in the city of Chicago. We have a very, very robust group of chambers and place-based organizations in the city that all work together and really try to level the playing field for small businesses. We need a level playing field. We talked about that last time I was on. Remove barriers and open doors for small businesses, because in Illinois, Richard, nearly 98% of all the businesses in our state have less than 20 employees. We're driving the economy and really want to have a seat at the table, and that's what the SBAC works to do.
And that's big work. It's big work because so many times, and this is what comes out of the mouths of politicians on each side of this conversation, is that small businesses are the engine that drives our economy, and we know that to be so true, particularly when it comes to that local business that is very quick and first to employ someone of those 20 people. And that then allows that business to grow. And we know the story. It becomes a nice domino effect. But when small businesses are at the other side of that conversation, absorbing the brunt of the lack of, for what I'll call support for small businesses, true support, then small businesses are the first to suffer. So they're the first to hire and oftentimes the first to lose their stability when the grants and when the tax codes change and the things that are necessary for that small business to survive. You guys are standing in the void of that. And currently there's an unfortunate wave coming that's going to impact so many small businesses. Let's speak to that a little bit, Elliot.
Yeah, so, that was well said. And like you indicated, it drives me crazy when politicians use small businesses as sort of a political football, right? They throw you around when they're trying to score points. But when push comes to shove, things happen to small businesses as opposed to small businesses really being involved in the conversation. And right now that's going on with tariffs, right? So, essentially the small business community has been rocked by the uncertainty caused by tariffs and potential trade wars over the past several weeks. It's been like a roller coaster, and small businesses are watching this, and they're concerned about whether or not they're going to be able to finish the ride. And why are tariffs so important to small businesses, Richard? It's because small businesses are the ones that are going to pay the tariffs on imports. And then they're going to have to make the difficult choice of whether to pass higher costs on to their customers. And if they do that, they risk losing customers or, eating what may already be very slim margins. So it's been one thing after another. The latest was a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum coming into the country. That's going to raise prices for small manufacturers, for breweries, construction companies. I mean, think about all the companies that use steel and aluminum in that supply chain and how that's really going to hurt them when they have to pay more so quickly. So small businesses don't have the ability to negotiate for better prices like large companies. These increased tariffs are going to be a gut punch for small businesses. and they're just not able to change on a dime. So that's what they're facing right now. And, I can talk about what might be coming down the pike, but it's been a really difficult 3-4 weeks for the small business community.
And that's not just here in Illinois. That's across the country, and particularly in areas. And this is to talk about the dynamic of large business, medium, and small business integrating and working together. Typically, in my experience and my economic understanding, in larger communities, let's just use Chicago metropolitan area and the surrounding counties and all the rest, when because of the large amount of large businesses, in many cases, there are support systems that are in place, and larger economies based on the size of the community are there to help the smaller businesses kind of get through some of the economic crazy times. And I'll use an example. During COVID, we know lots of businesses, unfortunately, had to close, but a lot were able to be sustained or sustained by virtue of the fact that they were in a larger metropolitan area. So my premise and my statement is that's true, but when you get into smaller rural communities where there aren't those economic systems in place and the larger sort of, machine, they fall off the map so much quicker. And that's what is oftentimes the bread and butter of a smaller community, are small businesses, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And in these smaller communities, right, and even in large metropolitan areas, Richard, small businesses don't have the ability to buy goods in bulk. They just don't have the resources. So what you're saying is spot on. If you're in a rural or if you're just in a smaller community and you don't have the goods to make your products, or you don't have the merchandise to sell because you can't afford it, there isn't help for you. And that's where these tariffs are not only going to impact small businesses, they're also going to seriously impact consumers. And that's what the concern is. I think that's what the concern is that you see in the economy. The retaliatory tariffs now that other countries are putting on United States businesses are also a grave concern for small businesses that export, that are in that business. So it's really this chaotic situation where nobody really knows what's coming next. You've got the reciprocal tariffs on the horizon on April 2nd, and it's very, very real for small businesses.
It may sound like a silly question, but so many people I know are asking it on a day-to-day basis because of this chaos. Why is it happening in your experience and to some extent your opinion, Elliot? Why are these tariffs happening from the U.S. to other countries?
So I think that the concept of making more in the United States is not a bad idea, Richard, right? I mean, I think bringing manufacturing back to the States, I think supporting businesses here overall is a good concept. I think the problem that we've got right now is it's happening so fast and nobody knows where it's going. I do think that the economists that think that tariffs are going to help, I think the administration believes that tariffs will help the United States economy in the long run. I think there's a lot of economists that you read that and I'm not an economist, right? I take in what I read and listen to small businesses, but, there's a lot of pushback on that. At the end of the day, it's happening too fast with too little certainty. And I think the small business owners that we talk to and the small business community are sort of saying, hey, slow down. It's going to take us time to find new vendors. You don't have to raise tariffs by 25%. So why is it happening so fast, so quickly, and so dramatically? I don't know. It doesn't seem to be a very good idea for small businesses, for Main Street, for employees. I'm concerned people are going to lose their jobs. People talk about a recession. Oh, are we going to go into a recession? Richard, that's so real for small businesses, right? It's not theoretical. Like, businesses might not make it through a recession. So I don't know why they're moving so fast.
Well, and I guess there's two questions or two parts to that question: why, and then why so fast. The why so fast is chaos. There's no logical, planned out business reason to do it this quickly, because they do seem then to be retaliatory or to be of some form of punishment. Because let's be honest, the minute we've all seen this, that the Trump administration has decided they're going to, drop these tariffs, other countries have said, hey, wait a minute, we can do the same thing. So it shows that, and unfortunately, it shows a weakness in the United States of America. Well, with the administration, let me be more specific, because there's no planning behind it. There's no strategy behind it that is a strategy that's cogent. The strategy, if the strategy is just to punish and then hope that, to your point, down the road in the long term there's a benefit, that's not a strategy. That's just recklessness. And that's where, and why my heart goes out to say it that way, where small business owners are feeling it, because they're looking at it and going, which way is up? How do we navigate? Why didn't you partner with us to plan how we're going to your point, just purchase goods? That's the part that's got so many people frustrated and now angry, because we're seeing the reality of a lack of planning and organization from this administration.
Yeah, I think what a small business owner wants to do is go back to the time, which wasn't that long ago, where, look, running a business is really, really hard, right? You're employing people, you're working hard. Going back to waking up in the morning, working your 12-hour day, and being exhausted but done without having to check the news every 2 hours to see whether the federal government's done something that's going to impact your ability to stay in business. And looking at it from the small business perspective, right, the policy, the nonpartisan perspective, what local businesses and small businesses don't want through this entire what's becoming a tariff war is to be collateral damage. And it seems like that's what's happening right now. So, if your listeners are small businesses, if they know small business owners, if they're supported by small business owners, tell them to reach out. Well, I guess I'm on the radio, so I can do that, Richard. Please.
Why are you making me do Elliot, man, come on. Why are you making me do the work?
I know you're working hard this morning. I should take a little bit off your shoulders, right? We want to hear the stories. We have a lot of Democratic legislators in this area. So people always say, well, how can we get involved? We want to hear from you, because we've heard from businesses are saying, hey, the increases in the price of aluminum cans, they're really going to hurt our business. We don't know whether or not we're going to sustain ourselves with these margins. You talk to home builders. Well, how are we going to handle these higher prices? We want to hear from you, because then we can make the case that, look, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you sit on. Tariffs are going to cause higher prices. Higher prices are going to impact small businesses. Small businesses don't have the capacity to make it through a projected trade war, at least without some certainty. And if there's going to be tariffs, give the small business community some time to adjust, because it's not that easy, like you said, to find a new supplier, especially if you're not sitting in a large metropolitan area. And you got to figure out how you're going to navigate this really, really difficult process.
So the small business, and thank you for that, Elliot. And let me come back to before you and I had a little bit of joke with each other. Listen, folks that are listening to our show anywhere in the country, one of the things that Elliot said, and maybe you didn't catch it, is call, get involved, reach out to your legislators, irrespective of what state you're in or what district you're in. And yes, we're predominantly progressive, liberal, Democratic-leaning station, unapologetically. But at the same time, this is a message that's to anyone and everyone. And every now and again, I'll take the moment to make the point, Elliot. If you voted for this carnage, this is unfortunate because we're all suffering for it. And if you didn't vote, that's unfortunate because we're all suffering for it. But more importantly, to Elliot's point, the do something part of this conversation is everybody pick up the phone, or if you're going to be a keyboard warrior, let your legislators know on a state level and on a federal level that we have got to get the administration to put the damn brakes on with this chaos, and that it has to happen now. We don't have 3, 4, 5, 6 months to let it see how it's going to play out, that it's going to be a benefit for the future. Because there are businesses right now, large, medium, and small, and Elliot, you know this too, that they have their foot between the gas pedal and the brake, and they're not quite sure which one to press.
Absolutely, and I think many are hitting the brake. And I think even if you're somebody who's a vendor to companies that are really in the business of building things, right, or selling goods, you're thinking about hitting the brakes as well, because you just don't know where things are going to play out. And to your point about contacting legislators, that's spot on. And it doesn't have to come from a political place. I mean, this is like a life issue for businesses. It might be an issue for your business about whether or not you're going to be able to make it through the next year or paying higher prices. It's really letting politicians know how it's impacting you, regardless of where you are, regardless of where you sit. Maybe you're somebody who voted one way, and now you're seeing what's happening with tariffs, and you're like, whatever I voted for, right now, this is an issue that's impacting my business, my employees, my family. I have to figure out how to adjust. Getting engaged really means something. I'm telling you, people say this all the time, that folks' voice matters. People's voices really do matter, especially on an issue when we're talking about going into a recession. And again, I just want to make the point, you hear pundits on talk shows talking about going, oh, well, maybe we'll go into a recession, maybe we won't. Like, if you're sitting at home getting ready to go to work, or you're sitting at home getting ready to open go into your business and open it up, like, that's a really meaningful word for you. Mm-hmm. Tariffs are really, they're not theoretical. They matter.
They do. And it's irresponsible of folks to say, well, maybe we'll go, it won't be that bad. And I think what's really got a lot of people, I know this, I don't think this, Elliot, it's got a lot of people frustrated, is this sort of, well, there's going to be a little bit of pain. There's going to be a little, I mean, listen, man, off air, there's words that I would say that begin with M and end with that would basically, like, really? Nobody voted for a little bit of pain. Even those, and a good friend of mine, I have to have a little bit of a pause. A good friend of mine sent me something this late last night that says that this hellstorm is because there's a lot of mean people in our country. That's another conversation for another moment. But I know, but Elliot, nobody, I don't believe, at least I'm hoping, and maybe this is the optimist in me, voted for somebody sitting back and saying, well, there's going to be a little bit of pain. There's going to be a little bit of problem here. And, we'll see how it plays out. I don't know anybody on the right that's in my world, or on the left or in the middle, that wants a little bit of pain, and let's see when it's going to work itself out. I'm not going to jab myself with a knife just to see how it's going to work out. And that's insane.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're 100% right, and that's what drives people crazy. I play racquetball, Richard, and I'm in a little bit of pain. Okay,
right.
If I've been running my business for 20 years, and it's my family business, and I put my heart and my soul into it, and something is happening to me, not something I'm doing, right? And tariffs fall into that category. My little bit of pain may be having to close my business, or having to take way less money, or having to let people go because the higher margins. I'm sorry, the lower margins.
Lower margins, smaller margins.
Yeah. Lower margin, right. I may lose customers. That's not a little bit of pain.
Nope.
That's meaningful. And it also translates, not to go off base, but when people look at their 401k or the money that they're going to use to put their kids through college, a little bit of pain makes a big difference, right? For 3 or 4 or 6 months. So the whole point of our message, at least, is you got to consider the overall impact of things like tariffs, and you can't just do it to people. You got to give them the opportunity to adjust and have a cohesive policy that small business owners can count on, because this uncertainty, like you said, people are hitting the brakes. Businesses are hitting the brakes because they really don't know where to go with this.
Yeah, I want to definitely, we have to get you back on in a couple of weeks because what you're doing and your observation and your energy behind this is important. People need to understand that these consequences and collateral damage of this tariff and trade war is not acceptable. And I appreciate what you said about, furthering the conversation with our legislators, making the phone call, reaching out, getting involved, staying in the fight. I started the show off talking about that because I knew you and I would be talking, and I know the heat and energy you bring to the conversation. But as we wrap up, Elliot, to the best of your ability, give our listeners all over the country kind of a, your 2-minute drill on what to be doing and what they can be doing right now to affect the situation as best possible.
Absolutely. I think, number one, contact your legislators. Tell them your stories. Tell them how higher tariffs are going to impact you, and be relatively specific, right? If you export peanut butter, tell people, hey, this is really going to impact me. I don't know whether the countries where I export this product to are going to continue to take it. And that may cost jobs in your district, right? Be very, very specific about how it's going to impact you. You can contact us at SBACIL.org with stories, because we want to hear that as well. So people understand the very human aspect that something that's very, very complex and theoretical, like the tariff and trade war that's going on, will cause to people. So that's the second thing you can do. And the third thing you can do is consider, when you're on social media, when you're think about an op-ed, again, make your voice heard. And I would say to do it from a very non-partisan, but very practical. This is how it's going to impact me. You're my legislator, or if you're on social media, if you're doing an op-ed, these are my legislators, and we're looking for you to help the small business community, because we don't like being political footballs. We don't like being just tossed around for political points. This is a time we need politicians to stand up for the small business community.
Absolutely. Elliot, how can folks find you? I know you just said that a moment ago, but give it to them one more time.
Absolutely. They can go to our website. We have a place to contact us there. It's SBACIL.org. We appreciate every small business owner or an individual who cares about the small business community. We appreciate all of your engagement, so you can contact us there.
Absolutely. Elliot, thanks for being with us this morning, man. I look forward to having you back in a few weeks because, like I said, this is an ongoing conversation, and we want to stay in the fight, so we appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Richard, thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Stay safe, man, and we'll talk in a few weeks.
You got it.
All
Thanks.
Right. Bye now. Yeah, like Elliot said, guys, reach out to them. It's the SBAC.il. It's you can Google his name, Elliot Richardson. He is one of those leading voices, president of the Small Business Advocacy Council. It's a local organization that's doing the work, and we want to get behind them and use them as an ally to push back in the space right now, because I've gotten a handful of text messages from people that are saying there is already pain in capital letters, and I absolutely understand where you're coming from. So let's take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. This is Choose Views, and we will be right back.
Martin McManaman, Wayne Township Highway Commissioner, has served the communities and unincorporated areas of Wayne Township very successfully for the past 12 years. As a matter of fact, he's the first Democrat elected into township government in DuPage County. Martin is running for re-election as Wayne Township Highway Commissioner and wants your vote on April 1st. Martin is a union road builder with 35 years of experience and the only highway commissioner in DuPage with any road building experience. He cut taxes in 2019 and froze them in 2020 and 2024. Top accomplishments include new methods of road building and de-icing, saving taxpayer dollars and being environmentally responsible. Also, creating the first township-wide bike plan in Illinois. As chair of the Wayne Township Democrats the last 5 years, Martin McManaman helps Democrats get elected in DuPage County. Make sure you vote for Martin McManaman for Wayne Township Highway Commissioner and Christy Ann Lewis as Township Trustee on April 1st. Your vote counts.
Paid for by Citizens for Martin McManaman.
Question: where were you on May 3rd, 2005? If you were listening to the radio, you may have heard the first day on the air for WCPT. On Saturday, May 3rd, WCPT is celebrating 20 years on the air with a big live broadcast from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. We'll be at Max and Benny's restaurant in Northbrook, and WCPT listeners can attend this special 4-hour broadcast. Al Sparks will kick off the celebration with the WCPT broadcast team. Richard Chu, Joan Esposito, Patty Vasquez, and Scott Duff, as well as surprise guests from our 20-year history. It's the WCPT 20th anniversary, and you're invited to come and celebrate with us. To register for this special event, go to WCPT.com and click on the WCPT anniversary banner. Seating is limited and will sell out quickly. Go to WCPT.com today to register. See you on Saturday, May 3rd from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. at Max and Benny's in Northbrook.
So spread the word that WCPT is just great.
Hey there, it's Carrie Joy with your Work Money Minute. Today I'm going to share a story about me and my money. This starts in my 20s when I was what I will call an avoider. I was an avoider because I just felt like I was bad at money. I didn't want to think about money. I didn't want to do anything with money except make it and spend it and close my eyes and pray that the rent check would cash. I spent a few years beating myself up about not paying attention to my money until I started having a very short money meeting with myself every month. And those meetings taught me that with a little bit of effort, I could be on top of my money. I could know when it was coming and I could know where it was going. And eventually I was able to make plans for it. So if you're stuck in the avoider trap, hey, I know what it's like. Invite yourself to a money meeting. I promise you it'll pay off. For more money tips, check out workmoney.org. Till next time, this is Carrie Joy saying, take good care.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Partial sunshine develops here for today. We'll see high in the low 70s. Winds out of the south at 10 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. Then for tonight, mostly cloudy, a low near 56. By Wednesday, a chance for some showers and thunderstorms. Partial sunshine develops, high of 66 degrees. Thursday, a chance for some snow here early on, cloudy, high around 44. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 46.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
It's Chu's Views with Richard Chu on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Hey, Progressives, welcome back to Chu's Views, 773-763-9278. We'll definitely get to your calls, and I appreciate you guys holding. So some of the text messages, and I want to thank Elliot for being with us because he's an advocate, nonpartisan group for the most part. I think it's sometimes a more nonpartisan ends up leaning in a direction, one way or the other. But typically when they're advocating for things that are benefiting larger groups of people, they tend to lean a little bit left of center, just based on their actions. And Elliot would probably agree with me that in this case, with tariffs, that's the direction that he's leaning, because what's going in the other direction doesn't make any sense. And to that point, I want to reference a couple of text messages that I received. And I want to give a shout out to a couple of people. There's already pain. I see you and I hear you, and I know that's coming from one of our friends out in the 708. And then we got another very emotive text, emotion-driven text, and I'm with you, from our good friend Vicky, who says, I'm having a hard time advocating for people and small business owners. Particularly those, and I'll give you guys a summary of this. What she's saying is what a lot of people are saying. It's a lot of people are struggling with having to say or reference F around and find out, because they know that in their heart that's not who they really are. They don't want they don't want people to feel pain from this administration. Unfortunately, at the same time, there are people who voted for. That's why I said to Elliot, there are people that voted, and their vote is now causing pain to so many people. So, Vicky, I hear you. I want to be very clear so that you're very clear. I go there. I'm going to be honest, and I'm not going to BS anybody. I go there sometimes. You guys would see right through it if I didn't admit that. Well, there's times when I think, this is what y'all voted for. This is what so many people voted for. And not every person in rural communities voted for Donald Trump, but many did. And now they're in that phase of the F around and find out. And that's unfortunate. It just is. And as Vicky says, some people have to go to the school of hard knocks. And that's unfortunate. But their bias has taken them down that path. And this is why I said earlier to Devin that, and I said it to you guys on the air, but Devin and I were talking about this off the air, the bias of some of the advocacy in the Middle East is keeping this war open. It is. A person's bias right now is causing them to look in a certain direction and look away from other things. Here in the United States, people voted for Donald Trump because their bias, whether they're in a rural community or they're in a major metropolitan area, is causing this. So to Elliot's point, there are people who are feeling pain right now that live in downtown Chicago, or they're going to feel pain. And what he said when he talked about, people's 401k plans, that's right now. That's not down the road. And people don't want to wait for it to come back or their businesses to be able to be reopenable, to make up a word, because the pain is right now. And so I hear you, Vicky. Please understand that I hear you loud and clear. And thank you for your text to remind me of that. I appreciate it. And we got another one from 312 about, remember that a little pain that Trump may be talking about could mean bankruptcy to people. Unfortunately, that's also true. So, guys, I hear you. And I would highly recommend that you reach out to people like Elliot and find out how you can get involved. I say this all the time, often, if nothing else. Get involved. I don't want any of you. I can't control what you do, but my heart is in this because I want you to be involved. And why we have the type of guests and folks on the show that are local in many ways is because it allows you to get involved. And yes, we're based here in Chicago, but you could be out on the West Coast. You could be on the East Coast, down south, wherever. It gives you an opportunity to be involved rather than sitting by yourself mentally or literally and being frustrated. And I damn near beg you to do that. Reach out to the organizations that we've had on our show so that while we're going through this craziness and this hell, and when you have a moment when you get tired of calling your congresspersons, your senators, your state leaders, you have another group to go to be able to be there, to be supportive of the people that are there and the people that, and to be supportive of you. That's all I'm saying. And please, please, please don't pull the curtain down and not get involved right now. All right. Let's grab a couple of calls, Devin. Let's go to Mike in Los Angeles. Good morning, Mike, and welcome to Choose Views.
Hey, you're rocking it, man. Great show again. So I love the way you're talking about involvement. So I've been involved with Progressive Democrats of America the last couple of weeks. I was involved with them like 10 years ago via WCPT. But we have a town hall on Thursdays and Sundays. And like this past Sunday, we had Gay Valimont, who's
Did you really?
running.
Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
listen, I'm gonna go here real quick. I need your help. I want to get her on this show. I'm not going to be all bashful and whatever. I want to get her on our show because I spoke about her a couple of weeks ago. She's running in is it 1st or 6th district in Florida?
I think it's the 2nd, but it's the seat that Matt Gaetz vacated, right?
Yeah, it is. So offline, and I'll have Devin grab your number. Whatever we can do, I want to get her on this show because I want to help her win that seat. Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
no, that's okay. I got involved with West Side Democrats here in L.A., and I got her on a phone bank today. There was like 48, 98 people or something like that on the phone bank. Go to our website if people want to go to our website. They can get a jump on the phone bank, and hopefully we can flip that seat. So there's also Indivisible. They're having the big march on this April 4th. All across the country.
Yep, they are.
And I can't stress enough. I got involved with these organizations a lot because of WCPT and Progressive Voices. But got a hold of your congressman. Like I'm going to a town hall here in Los Angeles tomorrow, and I'm busy typing up a list of how people can get a hold of their senator and organizations they can go to. I mean, there's so many things. You give $5 every month to Democratic National Committee or the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. Go to your local city council, go to your neighborhood council meeting. Run for a local office, be a precinct captain or leader for the Democratic Party or whatever party. But get involved. I mean, you're spot on this past 20 minutes. You got to get involved. If you're not, hey, there's a seat that the founding fathers and mothers and people like Martin Luther King and Muhammad Ali and FDR and Kennedy, they made it so we can get involved. We can call the shots in our own government. If you're not at the seat that they made for you, you're advocating that seat to somebody else.
Yeah, it is.
You
remember what Shirley Chisholm said, if they don't have a seat at the table, I'll get a folding chair. So,
yeah,
just because ones may feel that they don't have a seat at the table necessarily, grab a folding chair. In other words, to Mike's point, get involved. And what popped into my mind when you said that about all these leaders that we've had in the past, we all stand on their shoulders collectively. And that's the thing that we have to see. Listen, y'all, right now, I've said this before. It's let's try to take away their spirit. That's what this administration and other leaders are trying to do, is to take away our spirit. We cannot allow that to happen. And we have to fight like all the list of leaders, former leaders fought, like Mike just listed off. So when you get a chance, Mike, email me anything and everything you can about what you're doing, because I want to talk about that more on the show, and I want to make some connections with people who I know would want to get involved with what you're doing. You can email me, Mike, at richard@wcpt820.com. Just kind of give me a laundry list of what you're doing, what you're working on, because I want to make sure to promote that as much as possible, okay?
pdamerica.org. Go to that website, y'all, and go to Indivisible. But I just want to say one thing about tariffs. I went to business school, and Donald Trump just wants to slap a tariff on everything. That's not what tariffs are for. Tariffs are to target markets, which we, to protect our targeted markets where we have the industry in this country. We want to support the industry in this country, but stuff like that we can't produce in this country. We don't call tariffs on because we want to promote trade. But what he's doing, he just slap a tariff, 20% tariff on everything coming from Canada. That's just the wrong way to do stuff.
He's not a good business.
That's Donald Trump for you.
He's never been a good business person.
No, he's not.
And he's never been a one to plan and have a strategy for making a business succeed. And this is just another example of him not knowing what the hell he's doing. And he's just going to go off of emotion, off of vitriol, rather than a plan. And people should have known this, but they got fooled by the okie doke. So, Mike, always good to hear your voice, man. And I appreciate you bringing the energy this morning, just like my man Elliot Richardson did. We not only can fight, we must fight. And so much is...
That's right, brother.
So much is in front of us that we can get done. So thank you, Mike, for being a part of the conversation.
Thanks for the great show, brother. Really educational.
Appreciate you, man. Have a good day and stay safe,
right.
Okay?
You too.
All right.
You, brother, too. Bye-bye.
Yeah, Mike is he's out there fighting, and we have the ability to do the same thing. And listen, sometimes, guys, I know that what you hear from me sounds like I'm being a cheerleader, and I'll take that on. I don't have a problem taking that on because I believe in our ability to go forward. And when we come back from this break, we're gonna grab another quick call, and then I want to wrap up the show with something that's going on with an organization that I'd like you guys to try to get plugged into. Let's take a quick break, Devin. When we come back, we'll grab a quick call, 773-763-9278. We'll be right back.
Still struggling with gas, bloat, constipation, nausea, or diarrhea? Have you tried eliminating foods but felt no change? It's time to call the tummy whisperer, Renee Barish at Digestive Health Solutions. Renee uses targeted testing to reveal exactly what's happening in your gut. Gut bacteria plays a key role in all your body functions, from cardiovascular regulation to brain function. When the gut is imbalanced, you may experience symptoms that extend beyond the gut, such as anxiety, skin issues, poor sleep, or increased risk for disease. Digestive Health Solution uses advanced testing to identify harmful microbes and evaluate the overall balance of the gut ecosystem. Get insights into your health, digestion, and how your microbiome affects all aspects of your body. Stop suffering. Call Renee now at 847-207-2034 or visit thetummywhisperer.com. That number is 847-207-2034. Let's get you feeling better. The Tummy Whisperer.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew on WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk.
Progressives, welcome back to Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Thank you to Mike for his energetic comments and most certainly his energetic get out and get involved message. It comes from all of us, guys. It just does, and we have to be willing to embrace it. So I appreciate you giving even someone like Mike out in Los Angeles the ability to speak to where we are. Let's go to another one of our friends on the West Coast, the northwest side of the country. You haven't heard, we are hearing from our friend Victor. Haven't heard from you for a while, but I hope you're doing well, my man. What's going on?
Absolutely. How do you do, Mr. Chew?
I do well.
You sound well, and
Thank you.
You're right on point as usual, except I would like to say that we forgot the other part of the equation about Donald Trump saying that the American people are going to feel pain. The point is, Donald Trump and Elon Musk and the billionaires, they aren't feeling any pain. In fact, they are riding on the pain of the American people and getting richer. So what we need to do, Donald Trump says he's holding all the cards, which it looks like he might be, but he's forgetting the American people are the wild card in this card game.
Yeah.
And I think that...
Go ahead, Victor.
Yeah?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
No, I'm thinking that the American people right now need to, like you say, get motivated, get out there, and take away the pain, and maybe put a little pain on Donald Trump and the billionaire and Elon Musk, because we don't deserve the pain. They're the ones that deserve the pain. They're causing pain. And
yeah.
so...
And that's
right?
I mean, here's where I'll go with that. And I'm not down with anybody feeling any pain, but right now we have to push back so that we don't feel an inordinate amount of it. If that means pushing it off onto those who are causing it, if that means pushing back in a way that says, no, you don't get to do this to us, then they got to deal with that. I mean, let's just be honest. They're causing pain to people that didn't ask for it. And yes, there are people who are in certain voting communities that voted for something that they thought was going to cause pain to other people. Well, I don't need to inflict pain on them to feel what they are already feeling. But at the same time, I'm not going to, like you just said, Victor, allow for anybody to inflict more pain on me and those that I care about. And you guys, as our listeners, are part of that conversation. So I hear you loud and clear. And I'm glad you're doing well, Victor.
Yeah, it's a billionaire class against the American people is what it amounts to. And like Marco Rubio said, the ball is in our court. So we need to really, like you say, push back hard. We'll never inflict pain on the billionaire class, but we are going to take leave the pain on the American people is what we need to do. And thank you for all you do, Richard, and keep up the great work. You're a freedom fighter and a warrior.
Thank you,
Don't
Victor.
forget that.
I appreciate you saying
Ciao
that.
for now, Mr. Chew.
All right, Vic, be well.
You too.
Victor's a warrior as well. He's consistent in his thoughts and his message, and we appreciate his contribution. I tell you, the West Coast is bringing it this morning. Naomi and Mike and Victor. So thank you guys for all that you do as well. We appreciate it. So I came across an organization and some information that I thought would be important, certainly relevant right now, and hopefully the audio is strong enough to hear. But I came across an organization that I want you guys to be aware of and kind of plugged into, and it's called America the Possible. And the gentleman that is sort of leading this effort, Martin Puris, and he talks about what he is, along with some of his other former advertising executives doing as a mechanism, as a tool to push back right now. So we've, Devin and I've got a clip that we put together that I'd like you guys to hear as we kind of wind down the show today.
If you're a fan of conspiracy theories, I've got a doozy for you. Why do you think we stopped teaching civics and American history in our schools? Was it just a dumb idea or a sinister plot to destroy democracy? The fact is that the very survival of democracy depends upon us, as in we the people, being informed, smart, and involved, engaged. But it's also a fact that 70% of we the people couldn't pass the multiple choice test that immigrants have to take to become citizens. Most of us don't even bother to vote. It's clear that democracy could use a little help. My friends and I, all people from the advertising business, have decided that it's time we get off the sidelines and do what we do best. So we've launched an advertising campaign we call America the Possible. Starting now, America the Possible will regularly post facts about how democracy works, one easy-to-swallow microbite at a time. The plan is simple. Once you know how the system works, we think you'll decide to get off the sidelines and go to work at making America all that it could be. After all, people, it's your country. It's your turn. You gotta do something. In the meantime, we could use a little help from you. Follow us, share, and together, we'll make America better by making Americans smarter.
So check out the organization, pay attention to what they're doing, and I'll do my best to keep you guys up to speed is maybe a better way of putting what they are doing. And he's a big believer in the reality that our civics there's been a shortfall, a chasm, frankly, of the teaching readily and actively in our American schools. And I would say he's right. You've heard me talk about that before. You've heard me talk with other people about the loss there, not understanding how the machine works has created this dumbing down of, now don't get me wrong, I'm for simplistic messages. As I said yesterday and I've said before, I'm down with simplistic messages to get people to get it and be inspired to act on it. But I'm not for dumbing down our society and dumbing down our community. And if you recall, one of the things that Trump said in his first go-around was, I like the, undereducated, something to that effect. And so we don't need that in our country. Because you have an education doesn't make you elite in the sense that you look down on people. And that's the misread that's out there. We have to stop that by getting back to talking about the importance of education. And I don't just mean, getting after high school, going out 4-year college. And I'm not saying just that. I'm saying that and some. We have to get back to being a learned society, a society that seeks information, that looks to be more involved and more aware. And as Martin says, involved in the process. And he even, got after himself and some of his colleagues were getting off the sidelines to get back involved in this fight. That's the key right here, guys, is getting back into the fight for those who maybe took a break and went to the sidelines. I understand that. I got a nice text this morning that I want to just kind of give you guys the overall thought around it. Just because there's been negative polling around Democrats right now, it shows that Democratic voters are frustrated with the party leadership, but not the individual people who are part of the party. Let's not get it twisted. And let's not let the polls tell us that we can't do something. We are upset about things that are happening with the leadership, but at the same time, we have to be willing to fight, because it doesn't mean just because we're upset that suddenly we're going to lose our damn minds and vote for the GOP candidates. That cannot happen. So I will keep you guys posted on what America the Possible is all about and what they're doing, and try to provide you with access to any of their information, and then try to get Martin on the show as well. There you go, guys. We did it again. Thank you for being with us. And as always, take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
tired of talking to yourself, we can get you an audience on the radio. You can produce and host your own radio show on one of our 2 stations. Please call 773-792-1121. That's 773-792-1121 and ask for Mark. Limited space available.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. In the heart of World War II, while the skies rumbled with the roar of combat, a groundbreaking squad of pilots emerged from the segregated South, the Tuskegee Airmen. An elite group of African-American pilots defied the odds with their courage and skills. Trained at the Tuskegee Army Airfields in Alabama, they became the first black aviators in the U.S. military. Despite facing racism and